Ok, buenos días o buenas tardes. Esto es la presentación, la grabación para Español 2, semana 13. Entonces vamos a comenzar. Ustedes tienen Language Lesson, este módulo, ¿no? Esta lección de lenguaje de Mishatames. Usted tiene pasado, lo que decimos, lo que llamamos diving past, ¿verdad? Diving past. Y después, simple past tense. This is what you guys have been doing with the past is last pattern, with the accent at the end in the yo and the usted, el, ella forms. Después, futuro y condicional. You have the future and conditional. And then to wrap up, you have decir and hacer. Story of two friends. These two verbs are very similar in a lot of ways, so it's good to keep them in mind together. You can think of the diving form of each one has the ch in them. Dicho and hecho. Okay, so let's start with diving past. You're going to use the present tense of haber, and this is technically not a past tense. It's a present tense, but it's something that has been completed. They were saying, I have done this. So in the present, it is done. Right now, it is done. Okay, so you have the present tense of haber. There's two words that mean have in Spanish. One is tener, and that is for having things, literally possessing them, having something. And it could also be used for how you feel. Tener, you can say tengo hambre, tengo frío, tengo calor. Okay, those are for things that you're experiencing, but you don't use it for this type of verb tense. You use haber, and the verb haber is a diving board verb in Spanish. It has to be followed by something. It has to be with something in Spanish. You need to dive with another verb. So if you're on a diving board, you have to jump, right? So you have the diving board and you have the jump. There's two things that you need for the diving, the board and the pool, right? So you need to do both. So once you get on the board, you have to go, all right? So he has two things. So let's look at some examples, and we've talked about this before last year. Yo he comprado. Yo he comprado. I have bought. Yo he comprado. Okay? I have bought. So this is not a complete sentence, of course, but you can use it to say, for example, lo he comprado. I have bought it. Okay? Lo ha comprado. This is the usted, el, ella form. He, she, or you, meaning usted has or have bought something. Lo ha comprado. You bought it, he's bought it, she's bought it. And with tú, of course, you just add an S for Roberto. Roberto, ¿qué has comprado? What have you bought? Okay, ¿qué has comprado? So it has an S there. And it's interesting because it actually does look like the word has in English. And it's a form of have, which is what a and as and an and hemos mean. Okay, let's go to the plurals. No lo hemos comprado. Of course, it's very similar to the yo form. It just has the MOS at the end, which makes sense because they're both first person. And then the last one is han comprado, which is not confusing at all because it's an N, just like you're used to. All right, the N, you add the N to the verb. Now, the an, the a, as, hemos, those are present tense. You conjugate haber in the present tense. But you got to dive into the verb. And it's got either going to be hado or ido. Okay, this is your AR track here, and this is everything else. Okay, there's a couple exceptions in Spanish, of course, with hacer and decir. Hacer becomes hecho, and decir becomes dicho. Okay, there are very, very few other ones. I can't really think of any other exceptions off the top of my head right now. Hado, ido are your standards here. Just most any verb at all. Okay, let's compare that with the simple past, and that's what you'll be doing now. So you've got this present perfect tense of the diving form, what we might call the diving past, even though it's not technically past tense. A simple past just means you did something. Somebody did something. It happened at a particular point in the past with a definite starting and ending point. So it's different than saying, I was walking somewhere. Because when you say that, you're going to give more information. It means that maybe you never made it, okay? If you said, I walked there, then that's called the simple past. So sometimes we'll call it the preterite. In Spanish, it's called el pretérito, okay? This is just the simple past. Use the past as last pattern for most verbs in the yo and usted, el, ella form, and then you can form the other endings from there. Remember your AR, ER track. And this is the simple past, it's not the diving board. Okay, so you're only using the verb, you don't have two different verbs going on, you just have one. But the endings are different to denote the past tense. And be careful of your pronunciation. AR track. If you take hablar and you want to say I spoke, you would say hablé. All right, you have to stress the end there. Hablé. Otherwise, it's a command. Haste, hablaste, you spoke. Habló, he or she spoke, or usted, you spoke. Hablamos, as we spoke. And the nosotros form is identical to the form in the present tense. And, of course, you have Aaron, which still ends in N, but it's differentiated from hablan. And it might be good to compare the two from present tense to simple past, right? So in present tense you have hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. In past tense you have hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablaron. So you can see where the stress is different as well in the endings. For the ER-IR track, very similar. The ER-IR track is going to have the letter I for yo. The tu form is iste instead of aste. It's really good to compare these two together, the two tracks. A versus E, aste versus iste. You see the similarity there. And o and yo. Amos and imos. They have a lot of similarities there. And Aaron, Yeron. You can just see the similarity. So that can also help you when speaking. Now, the next thing in your language lesson, and your language lesson, by the way, is pretty much the only thing that you have for this week. You just go through the language lesson and do the quiz for that and finish your memory verse. Remember the future and conditional. Future, you take the future root and add ia. It's the ria. You're going into the woods, right? You go into the woods and, oops, I did the accent wrong there. You go into the woods and you find the rio, but instead of a rio, it's a feminine river, right? So it's ria. Now that word doesn't actually exist in Spanish, but just to help you remember how to say it. Ria. And that's the conditional. And conditional is the would form, as you see down here. Hablaría, me gustaría, I would like. So you guys have used these forms before, and you saw them last year. Haría, sería, pondría. So you see the stem there is different, but it's always going to be the same between the two forms, the future and the conditional. And now, keep in mind that this is only the el and ella form of the verbs. There's more, of course. It's actually the forms of haber just put at the end, aren't they? You have a, as, a, hemos, and those are H's, by the way. Hemos and an. And if you put them at the end, you just have a there, the H-A, and you just drop the H, and you add it onto the ar of hacer, and you have ara. And that's where you get the future. So I will do is haré, H-A-R-E, haré. So you drop in the H on those. So this is where the diving kind of past that we talked about is related to the future tense because we're taking that H, that form of haber, and we're putting it at the end of the infinitive and dropping the H. And for most cases, you're just going to use the infinitive. But remember, the go verbs add the letter D, right? So we have pondré, pondrá, pondremos. Venir is the same way. Vendré, vendrá, vendremos. Ir just takes ir. It's just ir, to go. Iré. You gotta remember, you're using the infinitive. Like here, they're a little different. Venir, poner, tener, etc. And the last thing is decir nacer, the tale of two friends. These two are shortened in the future and conditional, but the good thing is they have the same stem because it's future and conditional, so you only have to remember one thing for each one. Decir becomes dir in Spanish, and hacer becomes ar. And remember, the future and the conditional have the same stem with every single verb. It's all the same with that particular verb, and there are no exceptions in the language at all. So once you know the stem, it's the future and the conditional are different for decir and hacer. And some other verbs, as we saw before, once you know that stem, then that's it. Then you know it. It's going to be the same for the will and the would. Right? They both start with W in English. Okay, will and would is the same stem. Diría, diríamos. And you're always going to accentuate. You're going to emphasize that I there. Diría, diría, diríamos. And future also is going to emphasize at the end. Daré, darás, dará, or dirá, diré, dirás, dirá, diremos, dirán. All right, and with hacer, haré, harás, hará, haremos, harán. That's the future. And then haría, ría, right? It's the woods, going into the woods. The would do, would say. All right, bueno, es todo. This is it, guys. This is it for the week. Feliz Día de Acción de Gracias. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Y nos vemos el 28 de noviembre. See you November 28th.